In every household and working environment, metal plays a major role in how people operate. From appliances and light fixtures to desk tools, chairs, and utensils, metal is the stabilizing element that makes all of today's conveniences possible. Metal fabrication is the process of turning raw metals into pre-made shapes for assembly use. Here are 11 amazing metalwork processes you must see. By the way, make sure to click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our engaging videos, and use that trigger finger by smashing that like button. Now, let's get into it. Number 11. Casting. Casting is when molten metal is poured into a mold or die and allowed to cool and harden into the desired shape. The process is ideal for mass production of parts with the reuse of the same mold to create identical products. There are several different types of casting. Die casting is when liquid metal is forced into a die instead of a mold, and there the applied pressure keeps it in place until it hardens. This process is known for the high-speed applications it supports. Permanent mold casting involves pouring the molten metal into a mold. There are a variety of types of casting processes. In some cases, a vacuum is also used in the process. Permanent mold casting can create stronger castings than die casting, but they can be difficult to remove from the final product. For this reason, semi-permanent mold castings are also available. These molds have expendable cores, making them more manageable and less costly to remove. The final casting process is sand casting. With sand casting, castings are made by pressing a pattern into a fine mixture of sand. Number 10. Cutting. This very common type of fabrication is the cutting of a metal workpiece to split into smaller sections. While sawing is the oldest method of cutting, modern methods include laser cutting, water jet cutting, power scissors, and plasma arc cutting. There are many different methods of cutting, from manual and power tools to computer numerical computer or CNC cutters. Cutting may be the first stage in a longer fabrication process or the only process used. Die cutting is another cutting process that uses a die to slice metal. Rotary die cutting uses a spinning cylindrical die to cut the material that is fed through a press. Flatbed die cutting is used on thicker metal materials and uses a die on a press to cut out shapes when the die stamps down on the metal. Number 9. Drawing. Drawing uses tensile force to pull metal into and through a tapered die. The die stretches the metal into a thinner shape. Usually drawing is performed at room temperature and is called cold drawing, but the metal workpiece can be heated in order to reduce the required force. This process is considered deep drawing when the end product has a depth that is equal to or greater than its radius. It's usually used with sheet metal fabrication to turn sheets of metal into hollow cylindrical or box-shaped vessels. Number 8. Folding. Metal is manipulated to bend at an angle. The most common means is with a brake press that creates creases in the metal by pinching it. The workpiece is held between a punch and a die and forced to crease with pressure from the punch. This process is usually used to shape sheet metal. Folding can also be done by hammering the metal until it bends, or by using a folding machine, also known as a folder. The machine has a flat surface where the sheet metal is placed, a clamping bar that holds the workpiece in place, and a front panel that lifts upward and forces the metal extended over it to bend. Number 7. Forging. Forging uses compressive force to shape metal. A hammer or die strikes the metal workpiece until the desired shape is formed. The process can be done with a metal at room temperature and is called cold forging. Forging can also be performed with the metal heated to a range of above room temperature to below the recrystallization temperature and is then called warm forging. When the metal is heated to its recrystallization temperature, which varies by metal, the process is called hot forging. Forging is one of the oldest types of fabrication, with blacksmiths using forging centuries ago. Number 6. Extrusion. In the extrusion process, the workpiece is forced through or around an open or closed die. When forced through an open or closed die, the diameter of the workpiece is reduced to the cross-section of the die. When pressed around a die, a cavity is formed within the workpiece. Both of these processes generally use a metal slug or cylinder, a billet, as the workpiece, and a ram to perform the impact operation. The resulting cylindrical item product is often wiring or piping. The die cross-section can have different shapes to produce differently shaped parts. Extrusion can be continuous to create very long pieces or semi-continuous in order to create many shorter pieces. Number 5. Machining. Machining refers to the process of shaping metal by removing the unwanted material from it. This process can be performed in a variety of ways. There are many different machining processes, including drilling, turning, and milling. Drilling uses a rotary cutting tool, the drill bit, to cut a hole in the material. The drill bit presses against the metal while being rotated very quickly in order to create a circular hole. Turning uses a lathe to rotate the metal, while a cutting tool moves in a linear motion to remove metal along the diameter, creating a cylinder shape. The cutting tool can be angled differently to create different shapes. It can be done manually or with a CNC turning machine. CNC machining is generally used when part measurements must be extremely precise. Number 4. Punching. Uniquely shaped turrets on a punch press hit the metal through or into a die to create holes. The end product can either be the piece of metal with holes for fastening purposes, or it can be the now removed and shaped metal pieces called the blanking. Most punch presses are mechanical, but smaller and simpler punches can be hand-powered. CNC punch presses are also now common and are used for both heavy and light metal work. Number 3. Shearing. One long straight cut is achieved by combining two tools, with one of the tools above the metal and another one located below for applying pressure. The upper blade forces the metal down onto the stationary lower blade and fractures it. The fracture then spreads inward for complete separation. The sheared edges are usually burred. It is ideal for cutting smaller lengths and differently shaped materials since the blades can be mounted at angles to reduce the required force. Number 2. Stamping. This process is similar to punching, except the press doesn't create a hole in the metal but an indentation. The turret doesn't completely force the metal through the die but only raises it. Stamping is used to form shapes, letters, or images in a metal panel or sheet. Mechanical and hydraulic are the two types of stamping presses. Metal stamping machines cast, punch, cut, and shape metal sheets. Sheets of up to 1/4 inch thickness are molded into specified shapes and sizes. The presses used for metal stampings can create a wide range of products, and they can perform a series of operations including blanking, metal coining, and four-slide forming. Metal coining, as the title implies, can be used to create coins, but it has other uses as well, such as parts for electronics. Four-slide forming incorporates a variety of stamping and forming processes to create more complex products, and it's particularly effective for smaller parts. Number 1. Welding. Usually, all the parts end up in a certain assembly. There are also several ways to assemble, including riveted and bolted assemblies. One of the most widely used ways to produce assemblies is welding. Welding attaches two or more metal parts by adding a third molten metal into the mix, or by melting the metals to be joined. This depends on the welding method. Welding's advantage is its reliability and strength. At the same time, the quality is sometimes difficult to determine from the outset. Poor quality weldments can have disastrous results. Which among these metalwork processes have you tried? Let us know in the comments section below. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so we can continue giving you the best content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.